So hello guys, what's up and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's me, your girl barrister Neze, and this is Nezeville. Today I want to tell us a story, a very powerful, significant, lesson-filled true life story, and we're going to relate this story to our lives, our society, our experiences. But first, before we go in, if you're new here, seeing me for the first time, or if you've been watching without subscribing, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, drop all your comments as I tell you the story down in the comment section, and stay glued, for we have so much more coming your way. Don't also forget to join us on our Africa Folktale channel. We have a brand new sizzling Africa Folktale there waiting for you. It's fun, enjoyable, and you will love it. Join us there, watch and subscribe. So let's get into this video. James Lee SALTMARSHALL was a young 22-year-old man from Detroit in the United States. He was dating this lady called Zulika, and she was 29 years. They had a baby together, a beautiful, adorable baby girl whom they named Jania. Jania's mother could not have custody of her. She had a record of child abuse, and she was on parole for third-degree child abuse. In fact, the authorities had already removed all 6 of her children from her. So James SALTMARSHALL took custody of his princess, whom he grew to love and cherish so deeply. They were like 2 peas in a pod. On this fateful day, on the 20th of March 2017, James and his girlfriend Zulika were lodged at a motel, the Alpine Motel in Michigan. After spending some time together, she went to work, leaving the baby alone in the hotel room with her father, James. And only a few hours later, the baby was an inch, a hair's breadth from death. What happened? What killed Jania? Or who killed Jania?
This all happened at this motel in Inkster back in April. The dad was alone in one of these rooms with his 8-month-old baby girl. They had rented the room for a week.
This was a baby who was hale, healthy and hearty, bubbling with energy only a few hours ago. She wasn't ill. Nothing was wrong with her. So how could she be almost dead when she was left alone with her father? James called 911 to report that something was wrong, that his daughter was motionless, that she wasn't breathing. And paramedics arrived shortly after this distress call. They rushed Jania to the Children's Hospital in Detroit. Doctors battled and struggled to save the life of this poor child. But unfortunately, 4 days after this incident, Jania died. James was beyond devastated and miserable to learn that his charming 8-month-old princess, who wasn't ill, nothing was wrong with her, whom he was cuddling and playing with only a few hours ago, was now dead. He was hysterical. He wept frantically, but little did he know that more was on its way. The opinions of the doctors who treated Jania, the opinion of the sexual assault examiner who checked Jania, in fact, all the opinions of the medical practitioners who treated and cared for Jania before her passing pointed to the same conclusion. They said that Jania had suffered from sexual assault, abuse, fracture to her skull, and rectal wounds consistent with injuries resulting from foreign body insertion into the anus. In other words, Jania was raped anally and murdered. There was only one person who was responsible for this. Only one person who could have done this. Only one person who had a penis around Jania. The only one who was with Jania at the time of her death. It was none other but James SALTMARSHALL, her father.
Died in the case of a man accused of sexually assaulting and then killing his 8-month-old baby girl.
The police quickly swept in and arrested James. He was bound in cuffs and taken to the station, and he was instantly remanded in custody. While in custody, the police spent hours upon hours interrogating and quizzing and questioning James.
What the doctors are telling me. And you know what the sexual assault examiner is telling me? What is going on? This is crazy. Why did you keep saying that we won't find your DNA on her? Because I don't do that. I don't do that stuff. So what did you do? Nothing. I didn't touch her. I didn't touch my daughter's butt, man.
And I'm sure you are also curious. You may ask at this point, what exactly did James have to say about the situation? What did he have to say about the sudden unnatural passing of his 8-month-old baby girl left alone in his custody? Well, according to James, him and Denia were watching a movie, lying on the bed together and watching the movie. And he stretched his arms while she laid right here. And while watching television, the both of them fell asleep, only for him to wake up and find out that Jania was not breathing.
I was asleep. I had her in this arm because if I didn't hold her, and I fell asleep first, there's a chance that she could crawl on the bed and jump off and fall and hit her head, and I wouldn't know until I woke up or heard her crying. So I brought her closer. We went to sleep. I woke up and I realized that my daughter wasn't breathing, so I called for help.
And when asked about the lacerations found on her anus, he said that he did not have any idea.
I've got medical people, doctors and nurses, who are telling me that somebody stuck something in your daughter's ass. And you're telling me you're the only one there. I mean, come on, man.
James SALTMARSHALL II did not rape his daughter. I know it wasn't me. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay? And it's going to take 10 years for somebody to realize that. While I'm sitting in prison and probably go to jail and get killed in prison for some shit that I didn't do.
Bullshit. Ridiculous nonsense. Story for the gods. The detective was not having it.
It was the head injuries that killed her, but doctors also found extensive evidence of sexual assault. SALTMARSHALL, for his part, originally told police he fell asleep with his little girl in the crook of his arm and then woke up to her not breathing. Doctors say, no way is that what happened.
Come on, that jargon story will sound ridiculous and unbelievable even to a preschooler. And so the detective kept on quizzing him, kept on drilling him, questioning him, interrogating him for hours and hours on end, trying to extract the truth from him, trying to get a confession from him. But James did not shift. He kept on insisting that he did not know what happened to his baby.
Somebody help me! I'm telling the truth! I still don't think you're telling me the whole truth. Dude, I promise to God, I'm telling you. If I had something to tell you, I would tell you, okay? I'm not going to go to jail. That is not fair. This is not fair. What did I do? Oh my God.
At the point, the detective began trying to put words into his mouth, asking him if he blanked out at some point, if he took drugs, if he overdosed, if there was any part of his life that he couldn't account for in that room, maybe he blacked out, trying to infuse a situation into his head. Let us just settle. We don't want this case to go to trial. You're already in trouble. Just come out clean and tell us what you did to her. But James wept, and with tears in his eyes and shivers in his spine, he insisted that he had never, ever done anything to hurt his baby. Well, James' insistence or denial held no water at all. The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office dragged him straight to court, and he was slammed with 3 very serious felonies. First, felony murder. 2, first-degree child abuse. 3, first-degree criminal sexual conduct. Oh boy, these were very serious offenses. And if convicted, James, who was 22 at that time, will be confined to the rest of his life in prison without the option of parole. So he would never get out. He would die in prison, even if it took 60 years.
Now, James Saltmarshall is charged with first-degree murder, first-degree child sexual misconduct, life in prison without parole.
And that's even because the state of Illinois, where this event happened, had abolished the death penalty. If it were states like Alabama, Louisiana, Utah, Texas, where the death penalty is still in effect, he would easily get the chair. And so James's trial began. Bail bond was set at $2 million. He was finished.
Please stand to your feet. Count 1. Felony murder, homicide. You did knowingly or intentionally cause serious physical harm to a child. That's a felony punishable by up to life in prison.
He was dealing with the overwhelming grief that came with the tragic and sudden loss of his baby. And he was also dealing with the consumption of guilt that she died right in his arms, in his care and in his custody. And he was also dealing with the possibility that he will spend the rest of his life and die in prison for an offense that he claimed he did not commit. And don't even go to the angle of the reputational damage that he was facing. Social media was awash with commentaries, vile comments calling him a beast and a murderer, an alien, saying that he should be killed. He was the most hated man in America at the time.
Her 22-year-old father is accused of killing her.
They're bad, Devin, and that's just for starters here. We're talking about multiple skull fractures, a brain bleed, a retinal hemorrhage, and then there are other injuries that we're not going to get very specific on. Let me explain.
Come on, a father raped his 8-month-old baby to death. Everybody wanted his head. Even his own mother, Aisha, was more than convinced that her son was guilty as sin.
I saw somebody who was crying for themselves. He was not crying for Janiyah.
That her son killed his daughter. She publicly proclaimed him a killer.
Together, Bonnie and Clyde, I feel that they killed my grandbaby.
Oh my God. Calling for justice for her granddaughter.
At times, we create monsters, and I may have created one of those monsters.
No one was on his side.
And she says bluntly tonight, her son killed her deliberately.
It's no accident.
He was just there waiting to be condemned.
SALTMARSHALL must also avoid contact with children.
But in the midst of all of these, James still insisted that he did not do anything to his daughter.
This never happened, okay? My dad.
John, I have one other matter.
Yes, sir.
In the course of the trial, the defense moved for extra detailed examination to be conducted on the remains of Janiyah, independent of the assessments and the opinions of the earlier medical practitioners that assessed Janiyah before she passed, and the court granted leave. A full autopsy on the remains of the baby was conducted at the Wayne County Medical Center, and when the result came out, it was clean. It revealed that Janiyah's death was caused by asphyxia, indicating an accidental suffocation in the course of co-sleeping. The autopsy also found no single evidence of skull fracture or shaken baby syndrome or any sexual assaults for that matter. And what was earlier described as wound, as laceration in her anus, was actually not. It wasn't born out of sexual assault. It was just a tiny, very tiny crack caused by constipation. These new evidence revealed that while the baby laid on her side, just by her father's chest area, the side of her father, the father's arm was stretched, she was laying like this, while she laid by the side of her father, and her father holding her closely so she doesn't fall, her nose pressed closely against his chest, and she accidentally suffocated.
The doctors at Garden City Hospital and Children's Hospital in Detroit saw this baby right after the death, and they're the ones who got it wrong, indicating there was a sexual assault and there was trauma, indicating that this was a murder. Again, she says they got it wrong.
So on the 16th of June, all the rape and murder charges against James were dropped by the state.
Now, James Saltmarshall is a free man. The charges of murder and sexual assault in the death of his own 8-month-old daughter now dropped.
And he was cleared of all wrongdoings.
Did the prosecutor make a big mistake here?
Definitely. I've been told basically by my lawyer that she took my child up to the medical examiner and they basically said there was no physical damage to my child. I don't know why people would think I would do that and then call the police. That doesn't really make sense to me.
Despite free, James fell into deep depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. His life never remains the same. The case of James Saltmarshall is very painful, very sad, but very common, very popular, I tell you. It points to the fact that the justice system is not always black and white. You see, police and prosecutors are generally in a hurry, in a haste to secure conviction, to show working, especially when it's a public case, a trending case, a high-profile case. And this many times leads to cherry-picking evidence to suit a convenient narrative. Instead of investigating and building suspects around the case, a case is now built around a suspect, aligning every evidence to lead to them because it is the most convenient, most convincing, and most logical train of thoughts. This case shows that things are not always the way they seem, and even evidence that seems perfect and glaring could be wrong and false. It shows that we should always, at least more often than not, for the most part, give a benefit of doubt to people, and not just people accused of committing murders or committing crimes, to people in our personal lives, to our spouses, to our children, to our friends, to our colleagues, to our helps at home. Do not always assume that 1 + 1 will always be 2. Give people a little benefit of doubt, because sometimes perfectly logical conclusions that seem straightforward and easy to detect may still be wrong. This case sadly shows how many people are suffering and have died suffering from offenses for things that they do not know, that they did not do. Just imagine that this autopsy corroborated what the doctor had earlier said. Maybe the extent of the injury that the constipation caused looked like what an external object had caused. This innocent 22-year-old boy would have wasted his whole life in prison. Imagine it was a country in Africa where forensics are, oh my God, I don't even know how to describe the level where we are. That person would have just languished his whole life suffering. Studies have shown that 2 to 10% of all the convictions in the United States are wrong. So 2 to 10% of people that stood trial and got convicted were convicted wrongly. And given the millions of people in prison, this number amounts to tens of thousands of people, innocent people, rotting in prison. Begin to imagine the statistics in Africa. I really do thank God for the life of James Saltmarshall, and I pray that we may never be in situations where we cannot explain or defend, in situations where the truth sounds like a lie and where the lie sounds like the perfect truth. May we not be at the right place at the wrong time, and only God is your witness, literally. If you have been accused of something you did not do and the evidence available looks as though you did it, please share in the comments section so people can be aware that sometimes the truth is a lie. Share your thoughts, your comments, your opinions, and of course your experiences down in the comment section. So guys, yes, we have come to the end of today's video. If you're new here, you are seeing my face for the first time, or if you've been watching without subscribing, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, drop all your comments down in the comment section, and stay glued, for we have so much more coming your way. It's me, your girl barrister Neze, and this is Nezeville. I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye.